Captain Minho stared at his screens with growing worry. For 30 years he had watched the signals from thousands of worlds across the galaxy. His job on the Celestial Watch Station was simple but important. He listened to the sounds that planets made, radio waves, energy signals, and the busy chatter of civilizations talking to space. But today, something was very wrong. Earth had gone quiet. Not the normal quiet of a planet sleeping during its night cycle. This was different. This was complete silence. The blue world that buzzed with more signals than any other planet in this part of the galaxy had simply stopped making noise. Minho checked his equipment 3 times. The machines were working fine. He called his assistant, a young officer named Junho, to look at the readings with him. "Sir, when did this happen?" Hunyo asked, his voice shaking a little. "About 6 hours ago," Minho replied. "Earth just stopped. Look at this data from yesterday." The screen showed Earth as it normally appeared to their sensors. Thousands of radio signals bounced around the planet. Television broadcasts, internet traffic, satellite communications, and military channels created a web of electronic noise that could be seen from light years away. Earth was loud, busy, and very much alive. Now the screen showed nothing. A perfect blank space where Earth's signals should be. Maybe their star had a solar flare, Shunyo suggested. That could knock out their electronics for a while. Minho shook his head. "I checked that too. Their star is calm. No unusual activity at all. Besides, even a massive solar storm would not stop everything. Some signals would still get through." They both knew what this kind of silence usually meant. When a planet stopped sending signals to space, it meant the civilization had ended. War, disease, natural disaster, or some other catastrophe had destroyed the ability to communicate. The galaxy had seen it happen before to other young species, but Earth was special. The humans there had surprised everyone by developing technology so quickly. Just 200 years ago, they were using wooden ships and simple metals. Now they had nuclear power, computers, and were starting to explore their own solar system. Many in the Dominion Assembly believed humans would reach faster than light travel within the next 50 years. It seemed impossible that such a rapidly growing civilization could just disappear overnight. Minho sent an urgent message to the Dominion Assembly headquarters. The Assembly was a group of 6 alien species that worked together to keep peace in this part of the galaxy. They had been watching Earth carefully, waiting for the right time to make contact with humanity. The Assembly had rules about contacting new species. They only talked to civilizations that had developed faster than light travel. This rule existed because species that could travel between stars were usually wise enough to handle the shock of learning they were not alone in the universe. Earth was still years away from this milestone, so the Assembly just watched and waited. They had built several monitoring stations like the Celestial Watch to keep track of developing worlds. Within hours of Minho's report, ships from 3 different species were racing toward Earth. The fastest was a Kalani military vessel commanded by Admiral Hyunwoo. The Kalani were a proud warrior race that valued strength and honor above all else. They had been particularly interested in humans because humanity showed similar traits of determination and fighting spirit. The second ship belonged to the Vorthak, led by Science Director Suman. The Vorthak were the opposite of the Kalani. They were calm, logical beings who loved to study and learn. They found human behavior fascinating because humans seemed to make decisions based on emotion rather than pure logic, yet somehow still managed to succeed. The third ship carried representatives from several smaller species in the Assembly. They were curious about what had happened to the noisy little planet that had entertained them for decades with its chaotic but creative broadcasts. Back on Earth, in the city that humans called Seoul, something incredible was happening, but no one in space could see it because there were no signals to detect. Taewon sat in front of the last working radio transmitter on the planet. He was Earth's deep space communication officer, one of only a few humans who knew that aliens were watching their world. His job was to monitor space for any signs that Earth had been discovered by other civilizations. For months, Taewon had been detecting the alien monitoring stations. He knew they were out there, listening to Earth's signals. He also knew that humanity was about to do something that would change everything. The transformation had begun 3 days ago. Around the world, every electronic device had started to behave strangely. Computers worked without electricity. Cars moved without fuel. Lights glowed without being connected to power lines. At first, people panicked. They thought it was some kind of massive system failure, but then they realized what was really happening. Humanity was evolving. The change was not in their bodies but in their minds. Somehow people were learning to control technology with their thoughts. Machines responded to human consciousness instead of electricity. The scientists called it quantum consciousness integration. The average person just called it the change. Whatever name they used, the result was the same. Humanity no longer needed to send electromagnetic signals into space. Their technology had become something entirely different. Taewon looked at his radio one last time. In a few minutes, he would shut it down forever. Earth would become completely silent to the outside universe. But first, he had one final message to send. He adjusted the frequency to target the monitoring stations he had detected. His message would reach Captain Minho and the other watchers within hours. "This is Earth," Taewon spoke into the microphone. "To anyone listening in the darkness between stars, we want you to know something important. We are not dying. We are not destroyed. We are not gone." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We are becoming something else, something new. Do not think our silence means we have ended. Our silence means we have begun." Taewon pressed the final switch. The radio went dark. Around the world, the last few electronic signals faded away. Earth became invisible to every monitoring device in the galaxy. But the planet was far from dead. In cities across the world, millions of people were learning to live in a new way. They were discovering that human consciousness, when properly focused, could manipulate matter and energy in ways that seemed impossible. Children were the fastest to adapt. They played games by making toys float through the air with their minds. They turned on lights by thinking about brightness. They made water flow uphill just by believing it should. Adults took longer to accept the change, but they were learning too. Engineers found they could repair broken machines by touching them and visualizing the correct function. Doctors discovered they could heal patients by focusing their thoughts on health and recovery. Farmers could make crops grow faster by concentrating on the idea of abundance. The transformation was not easy. It required complete mental discipline. Any stray thought, any moment of doubt or anger, could disrupt the delicate balance that made the new technology work. Humanity had to learn to think as one people, with one purpose, or their new abilities would fail. Most importantly, they had to maintain perfect silence. The quantum field that enabled their consciousness-based technology was extremely sensitive to electromagnetic interference. Even a single radio transmission could destabilize the entire system and cause their civilization to collapse. So Earth chose silence. They chose evolution over communication. They chose to become gods of their own world rather than remain children crying out to the stars. In space, Captain Minho received Taewon's final transmission. He played it over and over, trying to understand what it meant. The human had said Earth was becoming something else. But what could that possibly mean? Within days, the first Dominion ships would arrive at Earth to investigate. They expected to find a dead world, the ruins of a promising civilization that had destroyed itself like so many others before. They had no idea they were about to encounter something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe. 3 months had passed since Earth went silent. Dr. Suman stood on the bridge of her research ship, the Harmony's Edge, as it approached the Sol system. As the Dominion's leading expert on alien life, she had been chosen to lead the investigation into humanity's apparent extinction. Suman was a Vorthok, a species known throughout the galaxy for their careful scientific methods and logical thinking. Her people had been studying space for over 10,000 years. They had seen many civilizations rise and fall. The pattern was always the same. Young species developed technology too quickly, made terrible weapons, and destroyed themselves before they could reach the stars. "We are entering the outer edge of the human solar system," announced her pilot, a nervous Kalani officer named Dong-hun. The Kalani were usually brave in battle, but space mysteries made them uncomfortable. "Begin scanning for debris," Suman ordered. "If the humans destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons, we should detect radiation signatures throughout the system." Her team of scientists worked at their instruments, searching for signs of what had killed humanity. They expected to find the usual evidence of self-destruction. Radioactive clouds around Earth, broken pieces of space stations, the electromagnetic echoes of a civilization's final moments. Instead, they found something that made no sense at all. Dr. Suman called out her sensor specialist, a young Vorthak named Jinwoo. I am detecting normal solar activity. No radiation spikes, no debris fields. The system appears completely undisturbed. Suman frowned. What about Earth itself? Any signs of impact craters or nuclear detonations? That is the strange part, Jinwoo replied. Earth looks perfectly normal. The continents are unchanged. The atmosphere is clear. Ocean levels are stable. I can even detect city lights on the night side of the planet. City lights? Suman moved to look at his screen. Show me. The image that appeared made Suman's blood run cold. Earth's nighttime side glowed with the familiar patterns of human cities, just as it had 3 months ago. But according to their instruments, the planet was producing no electromagnetic signals at all. That is impossible, whispered another scientist. Cities cannot glow without electricity. And if they have electricity, we should detect their power grids. Suman stared at the image for a long time. In all her years of studying alien civilizations, she had never seen anything like this. A planet that appeared fully inhabited but was completely silent to their sensors. Take us closer, she ordered. I want detailed scans of the surface. As the Harmony's edge moved toward Earth, more impossible readings appeared on their screens. Ocean traffic moved in normal shipping patterns, but the vessels showed no engine signatures. Aircraft flew through the atmosphere, but without any detectable propulsion systems. Weather patterns looked normal, but there were no radio communications directing any of the activity. It was as if Earth had become a ghost of itself. All the signs of a living civilization, but none of the electronic noise that such a civilization should produce. Doctor, Jinwoo called out urgently. Something is happening to the moon. Suman rushed to his station. On the screen, Earth's moon hung in space exactly where it should be. But as they watched, something incredible happened. The moon moved. Not slowly, as moons drift over thousands of years. Instantly. In the space of a few seconds, the moon shifted its orbit by 3 degrees. The Harmony's edge shook as gravitational forces that should not exist rippled through space around them. Alarms began sounding as their navigation system struggled to understand what had happened. How is that possible? Dongun shouted over the noise. Moons do not just move like that. Suman's mind raced through every scientific principle she knew. There was no force in the universe that could move a moon instantly without destroying everything around it. No technology that could manipulate gravity with such precision. No known species had ever demonstrated this kind of power. The moon moved to show us they know we are here, she said quietly. What? Several crew members asked at once. The humans, Suman explained, her voice filled with awe and fear. They moved their moon to send us a message. They are telling us they can see us and they want us to stay back. The bridge fell silent as her crew absorbed this information. Every species in the galaxy understood the enormous amount of energy it would take to move a moon. It was the kind of power that could destroy entire solar systems. Suman immediately sent a message to Admiral Hyunwoo, who was commanding the Kalani fleet approaching from another direction. Admiral, you need to see this. The humans are not extinct. They have become something we do not understand. Hyunwoo's response came back within hours. Impossible. Our sensors show no signs of advanced technology on Earth. If they had the power to move moons, we would detect massive energy sources. That is exactly the problem, Suman replied. They are demonstrating impossible power without producing any detectable energy signatures. Whatever they have become, it operates on principles we do not recognize. Over the following days, Suman's team conducted careful observations from a safe distance. What they discovered challenged everything the Dominion knew about technology and civilization. Earth's cities were functioning perfectly, but they produced no heat signatures that would indicate electrical power generation. Transportation systems moved people and goods efficiently, but without any visible fuel consumption. Manufacturing continued in factories that showed no signs of energy input. Most disturbing of all, the planet's population appeared to be not just surviving, but thriving. Agricultural areas showed signs of increased productivity. Urban centers were expanding and improving. The humans were clearly not struggling with the loss of their old technology. They had replaced it with something entirely different. I need to report this to the Dominion Assembly, Suman told her crew. This changes everything we thought we knew about technological development. But even as she prepared her report, Suman wondered if anyone would believe her. The idea that a species could advance from basic electronics to moon-moving power in just 3 months was beyond anything in recorded galactic history. On Earth, in the city of New Seoul, Jiwon walked through streets that looked exactly as they had before the change, but felt completely different. The buildings were the same, the people were the same, but everything worked in a new way. Jiwon had been a quantum physicist before the transformation. She had spent years studying the strange behavior of particles at the smallest scales of reality. She had theorized that consciousness might play a role in quantum mechanics, but she never imagined it could be harnessed for practical use. Now she lived in a world where her theories had become reality. Humans had learned to use their minds to influence matter and energy directly. They could make machines work by thinking about their function. They could heal injuries by focusing on health. They could even manipulate space and time in small ways. The moon's movement had been humanity's first major demonstration of their new abilities. It had taken the combined mental effort of nearly 1 million people, all focusing their consciousness on the same goal at the same time. The result had been more dramatic than anyone expected. "We got their attention," Jiwon said to her colleague Minjun as they walked past a fountain that flowed upward in impossible spirals. "The aliens know we are still here." Minjun nodded. He had been an engineer before the change, and now he helped maintain the delicate mental discipline required to keep their new technology stable. "The question is, what do we do next? We cannot hide forever." Jiwon looked up at the sky, knowing that alien ships were watching them from space. "We continue to grow. We continue to learn, and when we are ready, we show them what humanity has truly become." Around them, the city hummed with quiet activity. Children played in parks where flowers bloomed in patterns that responded to their emotions. Adults worked in offices where computers responded to thoughts instead of keyboard input. Artists created sculptures that defied gravity and paintings that moved with the viewer's gaze. It was a world that would seem like magic to any outside observer. But to humanity, it was simply the next step in their evolution. They had chosen to grow beyond the limitations of traditional technology. They had chosen to become something the galaxy had never seen before, and they were just getting started. In space, Dr. Suman continued her observations, unaware that every human on Earth could sense her presence. The transformation had given humanity abilities beyond just controlling machines. They could feel the thoughts and intentions of other conscious beings, even across the vast distances of space. Earth knew the aliens were curious rather than hostile. Earth knew they were confused and frightened by what they were seeing. And Earth was preparing to decide whether these watchers were ready to learn the truth about what humanity had become. The day Earth went silent had marked the end of humanity as the galaxy knew them. But it had also marked the beginning of something far more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. Jiwon stood at the window of her apartment in New Seoul, watching the sun rise over a city that should not exist. Below her, millions of people went about their daily lives in a world that ran on consciousness instead of electricity. She pressed her hand against the glass and felt the building respond to her touch, adjusting its temperature and light to match her mood. 6 months had passed since the transformation began. 6 months since humanity had discovered they could reshape reality with their minds. To most people, the change felt natural now, like waking up from a dream of limitation into a world of infinite possibility. But Jiwon knew the terrible secret that kept her awake at night. She was one of only 100 people on Earth who understood the true cost of their evolution. The quantum field that enabled their consciousness-based technology was unstable. Like a soap bubble that grew more fragile as it expanded, their new civilization was becoming harder to maintain with each passing day. The calculations were clear and terrifying. Humanity had perhaps 5 years before the field collapsed entirely. When that happened, every machine on Earth would stop working. Every building that defied gravity would fall. Every impossible garden would wither. Billions of people who had grown dependent on their new abilities would find themselves helpless in a world that no longer responded to their thoughts. Jiwon walked through the streets, observing the miracles that surrounded her. A group of children played in a park where trees grew into living sculptures, their branches forming slides and swings that adjusted to each child's size. An elderly man tended a garden where flowers bloomed in mathematical patterns, their colors shifting through spectrums that normal physics said should not exist. At the market, Vendors sold goods that had been created through pure thought. A woman crafted jewelry by imagining precious metals into new forms. A baker produced bread that stayed fresh for weeks because he believed it should. A musician played instruments that generated sounds by responding to his emotions rather than physical vibration. It was beautiful. It was impossible. And it was all going to end. Ji-won arrived at the secret facility hidden beneath the city. Here, in rooms shielded from casual observation, humanity's brightest minds worked on their species' greatest challenge. They called themselves the Continuity Project. The degradation rate is accelerating, reported Dr. Ki-won, a former nuclear physicist who now studied the quantum foundations of their new reality. We are losing coherence faster than our original models predicted. Commander Yuna looked up from her planning documents. Before the change, she had been a military strategist. Now she led humanity's most important mission, preparing for survival beyond Earth. How much time do we have? Yuna asked. 4 years and 7 months, Ki-won replied. Give or take a few weeks. Ji-won took her seat at the conference table. Around her sat the leaders of humanity's secret space program. While most of Earth's population lived in blissful ignorance of their situation, these few dozen people carried the weight of their species' future. The first colony ship is ready, announced engineer Minjun. We have successfully tested consciousness-based propulsion on a small scale. The ship can fold space around itself, allowing travel between star systems without producing electromagnetic signatures. Yuna nodded. Where do we establish our first outpost? Mars, suggested Dr. Hein, their planetary specialist. It is close enough for rapid evacuation when Earth's field collapses, but far enough away to maintain its own stable quantum environment. Ji-won agreed. Mars makes sense as a first step, but we need to think bigger. We need colonies throughout the solar system, and eventually beyond. The Silent Fleet, as they called their new ships, represented humanity's greatest achievement since the transformation. By using consciousness to manipulate space-time directly, the vessels could travel faster than light without engines, communicate across vast distances without radio, and remain completely invisible to conventional sensors. We have another problem, Yuna said quietly. The aliens are getting suspicious. Dr. Suman's research ship has been joined by 3 more vessels. They are conducting increasingly detailed scans of Earth. Through the quantum field that connected all human consciousness, they could sense the aliens' growing curiosity and confusion. The watchers in space knew something extraordinary was happening on Earth, but they could not understand what they were observing. How long before they decide to make direct contact? Asked Hein. Soon, Ji-won replied. Their scan patterns suggest they are preparing for a closer approach. We may have weeks rather than months before they try to land on Earth. This presented a massive problem. Humanity's new civilization required absolute mental discipline to function. The presence of alien minds with their different thought patterns and emotional structures could destabilize the quantum field. Even a single alien landing on Earth could trigger a cascade failure that would destroy everything they had built. We need to make a decision, Yuna said. Do we reveal ourselves to them, or do we find a way to make them leave? Minjun pulled up holographic displays showing the alien ships. Their technology is impressive by old standards, but primitive compared to what we can do now. We could disable their vessels without harming the crews. That would only bring more ships, Ji-won pointed out. If we attack them, they will assume we are hostile. The entire Dominion Assembly would mobilize against us. Ki-won had been quietly studying readings from the quantum field. There is another option, he said slowly. We could show them what we have become, demonstrate our abilities in a way that makes them understand we are no longer the species they remember. That is incredibly dangerous, Hein warned. If we reveal our true capabilities, we become a target for every aggressive species in the galaxy. Yuna considered their options. As a military strategist, she understood the balance between showing strength and provoking conflict. What if we give them a controlled demonstration? Something impressive enough to make them respect our wishes for privacy, but not so overwhelming that they see us as a threat? Ji-won thought about the alien ships watching them from space. She could sense their occupants' emotions through the quantum field. Dr. Suman was curious and cautious. Admiral Hyunwoo was suspicious but not hostile. The other crews were mostly confused and slightly afraid. I have an idea, she said. What if we invite one of them down to Earth? Show them what we have become, but in a way that demonstrates we are not aggressive. We could share some of our knowledge with them. Absolutely not, Minjun said immediately. An alien mind on Earth could disrupt everything. We cannot risk the field collapse. Not on Earth, G1 clarified. On the Moon. We have established a small outpost there using field technology. The environment is isolated enough that we could safely interact with one or two aliens. Yuna looked intrigued. A diplomatic meeting on neutral ground. We show them enough to earn their respect, but not enough to make them feel threatened. The Moon is also where we demonstrated our power by moving it, Kiwan added. Meeting them there would reinforce the message that we control this entire system. They spent the next several hours planning their approach. The meeting would be carefully orchestrated to show humanity's evolution, while maintaining the mystery that protected them. They would select a small group of humans who had the strongest control over their abilities. The aliens would see wonders that challenged their understanding of physics, but they would also see that humanity remained fundamentally peaceful. Who do we invite? Hein asked. Dr. Suman, G1 replied without hesitation. She is a scientist, not a warrior. She seeks knowledge rather than conquest. If anyone can understand what we have become, it will be her, Yuna agreed. How do we make contact without revealing too much about our communication abilities? Minjun smiled. Simple. We use their own equipment against them. We can manipulate their computers to display our message, making it seem like we have developed advanced hacking capabilities rather than reality manipulation. As the meeting concluded, Jiwon felt a mixture of hope and fear about what was to come. Humanity stood at a crossroads. They could remain hidden on Earth until their civilization collapsed, dying in isolation as the quantum field failed. Or they could reveal themselves to the galaxy and risk everything on the chance that other species could be trusted with the knowledge of what humans had become. Looking up at the ceiling, she used her consciousness to peer through the layers of rock and atmosphere above them. In space, the alien ships continued their patient observation. Soon, very soon, those ships would receive a message that would change the course of galactic history. Humanity was about to emerge from its silence, but when they spoke again, it would be as gods introducing themselves to children, hoping the children were wise enough to understand the lessons they were about to learn. The day Earth went silent had been the end of humanity, as the galaxy knew them. Tomorrow would be the beginning of humanity as teachers, guides, and guardians of a universe that was about to discover what was truly possible when consciousness and technology became one. Chancellor Wu Jin stood before the assembled representatives of the Dominion Assembly. The Great Hall held delegates from 6 different species, each one more confused than the last about the situation developing around Earth. The evidence is clear, Wu Jin announced to the gathering. Earth has been silent for 6 months. No electromagnetic signals, no response to our attempts at communication. By all standards we use to measure civilization, humanity is extinct. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Kalani delegates shifted restlessly in their seats, while the Vorthak representatives exchanged concerned glances. Smaller species whispered among themselves about what this meant for the galaxy. Therefore, Wu Jin continued, I propose we declare Earth an abandoned world and begin resource extraction operations. The planet contains valuable minerals and has ideal conditions for colonization by several of our member species. Admiral Hyun-woo rose from his seat. The Kalani warrior's imposing figure commanded attention throughout the hall. I object to this proposal. Dr. Suman's report suggests something unusual is happening on Earth. We should investigate further before claiming the planet. Dr. Suman's reports describe impossible phenomena, Wu Jin replied dismissively. Moons do not move instantly. Civilizations do not function without detectable energy sources. She is clearly mistaken in her observations. Dr. Suman stood up, her Vorthak calm showing signs of strain. Chancellor, I have spent my entire career studying alien civilizations. My instruments are functioning perfectly. What I observed on Earth cannot be explained by any known technology. Then you observed something else, Wu Jin stated firmly. Perhaps natural phenomena that appeared artificial from a distance. The simplest explanation is usually correct, and the simplest explanation is that humanity destroyed itself like so many species before them. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates supported immediate colonization, eager to claim Earth's resources. Others urged caution, worried about the strange reports from the observation teams. A few suggested sending a larger fleet to investigate. Finally, Wu Jin called for a vote. All in favor of declaring Earth abandoned and proceeding with resource extraction? Hands rose throughout the assembly. Not enough for a unanimous decision, but a clear majority. Earth would be claimed by the Dominion. Prepare the extraction fleet, Wu Jin ordered. 12,000 ships should be sufficient for initial operations. 3 days later, the largest fleet in Dominion history approached the Sol system. Massive cargo vessels accompanied by military escorts moved through space like a swarm of metal insects. Their mission was simple: strip Earth of anything valuable and prepare it for colonization. Captain Seojin commanded the flagship Eternal Vigilance, a Kalani battlecruiser that had seen action in a dozen conflicts. He had volunteered for this mission because he was curious about the humans. In all his years of studying alien species, humanity had impressed him with their rapid technological development and fierce determination. Now he was coming to pick through the ruins of their civilization. Approaching Earth orbital space, his navigator reported. All ships maintaining formation. Seojin studied the planet on his main screen. It looked exactly as Dr. Suman had described. Cities glowing in the darkness but no electromagnetic signatures. Weather patterns moving normally but no communication traffic. The contradiction made his warrior instincts itch with concern. Begin scanning for landing sites, he ordered. We will start extraction operations on the smaller continents and work our way up to the major population centers. But as the fleet moved closer to Earth, something impossible happened. They stopped, not because their engines failed. The power readings remained normal. Propulsion systems functioned perfectly. Navigation computers showed they should be moving forward at standard approach speed, but they were not moving at all. Engineering report, Seojin barked into his communicator. All systems normal, sir, came the reply. Engines at full power, no mechanical problems detected. Seojin looked at his instruments again. According to every sensor on his ship, they were traveling at exactly the speed they should be, but the stars around them had not changed position. Earth remained at the same distance it had been 5 minutes ago. This is impossible, his science officer whispered. Across the fleet, similar reports flooded the communication channels. 12,000 ships, all showing normal operation, all completely motionless in space. It was as if the universe itself had decided they were not allowed to approach Earth. Then something even more extraordinary happened. A voice spoke inside Seojin's mind. Not through his ship's communication system, but directly into his thoughts. The voice was calm, female, and spoke perfect Kalani despite coming from a human source. You thought silence meant death, the voice said. You were wrong. Every alien in the fleet heard the same words in their own language. The Vorthak heard logical, precise phrasing. The smaller species heard gentle, reassuring tones. But the message was identical across all minds. Silence meant we were learning to reshape reality itself. We chose growth over noise, evolution over comfort, and now we offer you the same choice. Seojin gripped his command chair as the voice continued speaking inside his head. Around him, his crew stared in shock at an experience none of them had thought possible. I am Dr. Nari, the voice explained. I was the first human to successfully interface consciousness with technology. I now serve as Earth's communication system with the outside universe. On the main screen, Earth began to change. The planet's surface shifted and moved as if it were liquid rather than solid. Continents rearranged themselves into geometric patterns that could be seen from space. Oceans formed spirals that defied every law of physics Seojin knew. But that was nothing compared to what happened next. Earth's moon split in half. Not violently, like an explosion or impact. Cleanly, as if it had been designed to separate. The two halves moved apart to reveal a perfect geometric core that pulsed with energy that hurt to look at directly. This is how we move celestial bodies, Dr. Nari's voice explained. We think them into new positions. Reality bends to accommodate our will because we have learned to work with the quantum foundation of existence itself. Seojin watched in awe as Mars began to move in its orbit. The red planet slid through space like a marble rolling across a table, adjusting its position to align perfectly with Earth. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter rearranged itself into a massive pattern of rocks that spelled out words in the common Dominion language. Humanity ascendant. How? Seojin whispered. We sacrificed our connection to electromagnetic technology, Dr. Nari replied, somehow hearing his question across the vast distance of space. We gave up radio, computers, engines, and all the noise that young civilizations make. In return, we gained the ability to manipulate matter and energy with our consciousness. The demonstration continued for hours. Asteroids danced through space in perfect formations. Jupiter's moons rearranged themselves to form geometric patterns. The rings of Saturn reshaped into spirals that defied orbital mechanics. Most shocking of all, the fleet's own ships began to change. Not damage or destruction, but improvement. Hull plating that had shown wear from years of use became perfectly smooth. Engines that had developed minor inefficiencies started running at peak performance. It was as if the ships were being healed by an invisible force. "We do not wish to harm you," Dr. Nari explained. "We show you our power not to threaten, but to demonstrate what becomes possible when a species chooses evolution over stagnation." Throughout the fleet, aliens stared at their instruments in disbelief. The humans had just casually repaired every flaw in 12,000 ships simultaneously, using no detectable technology or energy source. "What do you want from us?" Admiral Hyunwoo broadcast on an open channel, knowing somehow that the humans could hear him. "Nothing," Dr. Nari replied. "We want to give you something. The knowledge of how to transcend the limitations you think are permanent. But such knowledge comes with a price." The space around the fleet began to shift. Stars became brighter, colors more vivid. It was as if reality itself was becoming more real in the presence of human consciousness. Any species that seeks our knowledge must first prove they can maintain complete technological silence for 1 full year. No electromagnetic emissions, no radio traffic, no electronic communication of any kind. You must learn to work together using only direct consciousness interaction. Seojin felt his warrior heart race with the implications. That would require perfect cooperation among our entire civilization. Perfect mental discipline. Perfect trust. Yes, Dr. Nari agreed. It would require you to evolve beyond the need for artificial barriers between minds. It would require you to become more than you currently are. Around the fleet, the demonstrations of impossible power continued, but now they carried a different message. The humans were not showing off their abilities to intimidate. They were showing what was possible when consciousness and technology merged into something entirely new. "This is your choice," Dr. Nari concluded. "Return to your leaders. Tell them what you have seen. Those species that choose to attempt our test will find teachers waiting for them. Those that choose to remain as they are will be left in peace." Ambassador Kiwan stood in the center of the Dominion Assembly Hall, but he was not really standing there at all. His physical body remained on Earth, safely within the quantum field that sustained human civilization. What the aliens saw was a projection of consciousness made solid, a perfect duplicate that could interact with matter, but required no technology to maintain. The assembled delegates stared at him with a mixture of awe and fear. In the 6 months since the fleet's encounter with Earth, the galaxy had been in turmoil. Some species demanded immediate military action against the humans. Others begged for access to consciousness-based technology. A few had already begun attempting the year of silence that humanity required as a test. "Honored representatives," Kiwan began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall without any amplification system. "I come before you not as a conqueror or a threat, but as a teacher offering knowledge to those wise enough to accept it." Chancellor Wu Jin shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The leader of the assembly had spent months trying to convince other species that humanity's demonstrations were elaborate tricks rather than genuine transcendence. "Of known physics, what you call consciousness-based technology is impossible," Wu Jin declared. "No species in galactic history has ever achieved such capabilities. You must be using hidden devices to create these illusions." Kiwan smiled gently. To demonstrate his point, he gestured toward the ceiling of the Great Hall. The solid metal began to flow like water, reshaping itself into a transparent dome that revealed the stars beyond. Then the stars themselves began to move, forming patterns that spelled out messages in every language known to the assembled species. "I carry no devices," Kiwan said as the ceiling returned to its original form. "I need no machines to manipulate matter and energy. Human consciousness has evolved beyond the need for tools. We have become tools ourselves." Dr. Suman, who had been studying humanity for nearly a year, stood to address the assembly. "I have examined Ambassador Kiwan's abilities extensively. He produces no electromagnetic signatures, no energy readings, no detectable technology of any kind. Yet he can alter matter at the molecular level with a thought." "Impossible," shouted a Kalani delegate. "No biological brain has the processing power to control matter so precisely." "You are correct," Kiwan agreed. "No individual brain can do this alone. Human consciousness-based technology works because we have learned to link our minds together. When I reshape matter, I am drawing on the combined mental power of millions of humans working in perfect harmony. This revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. The idea that an entire species could coordinate their thoughts so precisely was beyond anything they had imagined possible. "How many species have attempted your test?" asked Admiral Hyunwoo. Kiwon's expression grew serious. 17 species have tried to maintain technological silence for 1 full year. 3 have succeeded. The hall erupted in surprised chatter. 3 species had already passed humanity's test and gained access to their knowledge. The Zephyrians were first, Kiwon continued. They are naturally telepathic, so abandoning electromagnetic communication was easier for them. They have established a small consciousness-based colony on one of their moons. The Christine came next. Being silicon-based, they think differently than carbon-based life. Their approach to consciousness integration is unique but effective. They can now grow living cities that respond to the needs of their inhabitants. Most recently, the Wanderers completed the test. As a nomadic species, they had less technological infrastructure to abandon. They have learned to travel between stars using consciousness-guided spacefolding. Murmurs of excitement and envy filled the hall. 3 species had already begun the next phase of evolution, while others were still debating whether to try. "What about the 14 species that failed?" Dr. Suman asked. Kiwon's expression grew sad. "Most failed within the first month. They could not maintain the mental discipline required for complete technological silence. A few lasted several months before their civilizations collapsed into chaos, without electronic communication systems." "And what happened to them?" Woojin demanded. "Nothing," Kiwon replied. "We helped them restore their original technology and wish them well. Failure to pass our test does not make a species our enemy. It simply means they are not ready for this kind of evolution." The honesty of this answer surprised many delegates. They had expected humanity to punish failure or demand tribute from species that could not meet their standards. "What do you gain from teaching other species?" asked a representative of the smaller coalition worlds. Kiwon considered the question carefully. "Survival," he said finally. "Consciousness-based technology is fragile. It requires perfect mental harmony to maintain. The more species that achieve this evolution, the more stable the quantum fields become across the galaxy." He paused, looking around the hall at the diverse assembly of alien faces. "But more than that, we gain companions. For millions of years, consciousness has been the rarest and most precious thing in the universe. Intelligence arising from dead matter is miraculous. We believe that miracles should be nurtured and helped to grow." In Earth's orbit, engineer Minjun worked on humanity's latest project. The massive space station called Haven was nearly complete. Built entirely through consciousness manipulation, it would serve as a training center for species attempting humanity's test. "The Altarian delegation arrives tomorrow," Minjun reported to Director Hyein. "They are the 18th species to request the challenge." Hyein nodded while making final adjustments to the station's living quarters. Each room could reshape itself to accommodate different alien physiologies and psychological needs. "Have they been briefed on the requirements?" "Yes, complete technological silence for 1 year. No electromagnetic communication, no electronic devices, no artificial intelligence systems. They must learn to coordinate their entire civilization through direct consciousness interaction." "How are their chances?" Minjun considered the question. "Better than most. The Altarians are already highly disciplined and organized. If they can overcome their reliance on computational systems, they should succeed." On Earth, the transformation continued. Cities had grown beyond their original boundaries, but not through expansion. Instead, they had become more dense, more efficient, more responsive to human needs. Buildings flowed and changed throughout the day to provide optimal living conditions. Transportation systems moved people instantly from place to place through folded space. Most importantly, the quantum field that enabled their civilization had stabilized. The original calculations predicting collapse in 5 years had proven incorrect. As more species achieved consciousness-based technology, the combined mental power strengthened the field rather than weakening it. Jiwan walked through New Seoul's newest district, where human children played alongside young aliens from the species that had passed the test. Zephyrian children, with their natural telepathy, helped human children strengthen their mental abilities. Christine youngsters showed human students how to grow living tools from crystalline matrices. Wanderer cubs taught everyone how to sense the quantum currents that flowed between stars. Integration is proceeding better than we hoped, Jiwan told her companion, a young Zephyrian named Skyweaver. Our species are learning from each other. The children adapt fastest, Skyweaver agreed, her thoughts flowing directly into Jiwan's mind. They do not carry the limitations that adult minds impose on reality. Above them, the sky showed signs of humanity's greatest achievement. Instead of the single sun that had always warmed Earth, 3 stars now hung in the heavens. Not because Earth had moved, but because humans had learned to fold space so efficiently that they could bring distant stars closer without affecting planetary orbits. The extra starlight powered new forms of consciousness-based technology that had never been possible before. Plants that grew in mathematical spirals, generating energy from geometric patterns. Weather systems that responded to collective human emotion, providing rain when needed and sunshine when desired. Ocean currents that carried information between continents faster than any electronic network. Back in the Dominion Assembly, the debates continued. Some species had already begun their year of silence, while others demanded proof that consciousness technology was worth the enormous risk of abandoning their existing civilizations. Show us something that proves your way is better than ours, challenged the speaker for the hegemony worlds. What can consciousness do that our machines cannot? Kiwan considered the request. Then he extended his awareness beyond the assembly hall, beyond the planet, beyond the solar system. His consciousness touched every human and allied alien within 1,000 light years. In the space around the Dominion homeworld, reality began to shift. New stars appeared in the sky, arranged in perfect patterns that spelled out poetry in every language spoken by the assembled species. The planet's 3 moons began to dance around each other in harmonious orbits that created musical tones audible even in space. But most incredibly, every delegate in the assembly hall suddenly felt a presence in their minds. Not invasive or controlling, but warm and welcoming. For just a moment, they experienced what it was like to be part of a vast network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy.